Hi, I'm Katie and welcome to the 100th episode of Ornamentations. I have so much to share with you today. I have finishes, I have more finishes, I have lots of embroidery, I have a really spectacular glittering finish. Yes, I finished that thing I showed you last time. Lots of fun, Christmas in July, and then to celebrate 100 episodes, we are going to do a review of some of my favorite cross-stitch finishes over the time I have been floss tubing, and then I'm going to end with a lot of special giveaways to thank you all for watching, whether this is your first episode, your 50th, your 100th, or anything in between. Thank you for watching. I'm glad you're here today. So grab your stitching and get ready because I have lots of great stitching to share with you today, and I think this is going to be really fun. So we're going to start with my July 12 by 12. Christmas in July is in full swing here. I've been having an absolute whale of a time and consequently lots of progress to show you. And my July 12 by 12, one ornament for every month, if you're not familiar, is a smaller 45 count ornament size version of Stacy Nash Gingerbread House sewing book. So just to quickly recap, I have stitched this one before full size as an opening book like Stacy Nash did it. This is on 37 count. If you're interested in the details on this, linked in the description. Really fun, especially with those glittery beads. However, I wanted to do an ornament size version. So since I saw you last, I did the preliminary finishing on the front. So I just mounted it on padded mat board and laced it. And then I also blinged it up. So super not surprised, I went for the blingier, crazier version. What a shock. What we discussed last time is that I had some very fine metallic braid options that I was looking at, and then I had also ordered some fun things that I was going to test out, and that was actually what I went for. So these are beads, but not the bugle beads like I used before. As we've discussed, those were just going to be too fatty on the 45 count. So I ended up mixing types and sizes of beads. So it's a scatter pattern essentially. Hold on, let me move a little closer to the camera so I can hold this comfortably. Praying it's gonna focus, not very well. So we have some chunkier 3mm bicone crystals, and then interspersed with that are 15-0 round seed beads and 15-0 hex cut beads. So the hex cut beads are essentially just faceted little tubes in this beautiful clear emerald color. All details on the beads as well as the threads used in this piece will be in the description if you are following along. And then for the seed beads, I have a beautiful warm yellow green with a little bit of gold luster on it. That's a beautiful color. You could actually end up just mixing these if you like. However, because I always go all of the way, I also have the slightly larger crystals. The color here is Fern Green. So the mix of the three I thought was really effective. So I just kind of spaced just a few crystals out, probably about 3 per small garland, and then filled in with the other beads just kind of as I felt appropriate. There's not really a pattern to it. The irregularity of the stitches was one of the things I liked about Stacy Nash's pattern, and I didn't want to mess that up by being too regular in my sparkle editions. And then I also did some size 15-0 rounds in round seed beads in the same color here on the wreath to give that a little fun. And then 15-0 rounds here on the tree, some of which are holding down tiny little sequins. And these, oh, helpfully they're labeled. I actually know what they are. I will put information on these in the description. You can get them from needlepoint stores. Bedecked and Bedazzled is a great one online. So tiny little sequins. If you're looking to add sequins to your cross stitch, by the way, I have mentioned this before, But needle point sources are a great resource for that because the sequins they sell are stitch size and not human size. A lot of sequins are made to go on costumes, aka the human body, which is a little larger than stitching generally. So you want things that are going to be in scale, and that was what drove my sparkle choices on this. Now, when I saw you last, I had not yet started the back of this version because even though this is going to be an ornament that hangs on the tree, I decided I wanted to do the back again too because the back has some pretty fun elements. And oh boy, I went to town, I actually finished. I haven't fully embellished this yet, but the stitching is finished. So next time I'm hoping I will have an FFO to show you. So one thing you'll notice is different here is that I just replaced the top elements. This on the chart is 2 mice with spools. Actually, no, let me just show you my, that's the charted element. But I was cheating a little, so I put my initials and then sort of the date. This is actually finished in July 2025, but it's first going to go on the tree for Christmas, so I felt like that was okay. And then I just added a couple little garlands to better fill this space. It's not really in scale with the other elements, it kind of swamps them, but I was just having lots and lots of fun with that riotous screamer pink. And yeah, I regret nothing. You know what? It's the back of the ornament. It doesn't have to be perfect. So before I see you next, I'm going to sandwich these together, add an ornament hanger, do some crystal edging to really just maximum bling this thing up. And then hopefully next time we're going to be looking at a super bedazzled ornament finish. And then I did add red beads so that I could have all the details on all of the threads used, all the embellishments, complete conversion and information for this piece. And then I will, although I haven't gotten to this yet, I wanted to film, also be adding the same green beads I'd used for the front to the garland there. And then I was having so much fun with the Bijoux. Unfortunately, the sparkle on this just doesn't show at all, but it just dazzles with light, especially under evening conditions, because I have 3 colors of Bijoux in here. These are my threads. So we have the discontinued white core Bijoux, and then 2 that should be easy to find, copper leaf, which is this just warm, glowy, sparkly lusciousness. And then Jade, which is a green, but the metallic wrap has a rainbow iridescence to it. Really, really beautiful. As you can see, I'm quite fond of it because just about obliterated that spool. But so, oh, bright, happy, fun colors, all of which are going to be listed in the description for this episode. The browns are new for the back. Everything else is the same as what was used on the front. So back to the stitch itself, I was having so much fun just sticking Bijoux everywhere that I then over embellished the fireplace mantle with herringbone stitch in Bijoux. I don't really think that's gonna focus, but just to add even more sparkle and fun. How great is this? I love it. 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 So this is going to be my ornament version. I have some finishing to do, and then I will be sharing an FFO with you next time. I think it is going to be great. I can't wait to see this put together and put on my tree. Just in case you haven't seen the larger version before, I just love those bugle beads and what they do for it. What a good time. I have really enjoyed this pattern. And then my other, finished, not yet FFO'd, I have a lot of finishing to do this week, that's for sure, is my first full-size animal cracker. So I did Bobbin by Stacy Nash, which is much smaller. My first full-size is Whitaker Animal Cracker by Stacy Nash, and I've got finished, not yet FFO'd, but embellished. And so this is Whitaker. He's so stinking cute. And then these are threads really short color palette. If you're looking to try silk for the first time, this would be a good one. All details in the description. And then we're going to talk about the embellishments before I move on to my color decisions here. So I over embellished all the little black 4-square elements with a 3mm black round sequin, and then just to make it really chunky, sparkly, and fun, instead of just capping it with a seed bead like I usually do, I did a 2mm crystal round. So they're really chunky, really sparkly, really highlights that and stands up off the ground. Unfortunately, the sequins aren't labeled. I did have the habit of doing that. You know, when I bought most of my sequin stash, I never dreamed I would be sharing my fun little Christmas things with the world and that anyone would care what my sequins were, where I got them. But everything else is in the description. So when last we saw Whitaker, I was just about done with the white stitching and I was going to have to make a decision on his pants and his mittens, and I was looking at brighter colors. So what I found as I tested those, and I went for kind of a desaturated darker red, was really where I kind of settled on as a color thing, was that it just drew all the attention down here. Whitaker was having a pants party with the dark red, and it just unbalanced the whole piece. So instead, I went more along Stacy Nash's theory of, you know, how to balance this out. He did need another neutral there with then just some fun mittens for a little color pop. Now my Whitaker will still look a little different from hers and finished, so I went for a warmer kind of caramelly color. My mother thinks it looks gold. I guess that's a Rorschach test, but on color, because I see caramel, she sees gold. I don't know what you're gonna see. Do say in the comments. And hers is a little more brown. This was just the color that I felt fit the whole thing. But I am going to give him a really jazzy scarf because I did see a Whitaker that had more color to it. So, sorry, I had to sneeze. I was pruning my butterfly bush this morning and allergies, it's a thing. So when I was picking colors for the pants, I was also thinking about how the scarf would work with that. I knew I wanted a bright, happy color for a scarf. And as I was looking at this photo, I mean, I don't want to do the same color, but I did like the softness of the look. It struck me that that's not actually felt, it's felted wool. So there is a difference between those two things. This is wool felt. This is felted wool. I'm not sure how well the texture differences are going to show on camera, but it's very clear in life. So wool felt is a non-woven that is made of wool. Felted wool is a woven wool fabric that has been put through the process of felting to mean that it doesn't ravel very much, but it still has a much softer, spongier feel and a little less even in texture. High quality wool felt tends to be very, very smooth. That's quite useful in wool applique, but I thought for a scarf you did actually want the kind of softer texture of felted wool. It look more like a scarf. So I didn't have a lot of felted wool. I have lots of wool felt, so I just ordered something that was readily available. I know some of you are stitching along with me, and that's Weeks Dye Works felted wool. And we're gonna look at what I bought and what I chose. So as we discussed last time, I did have some thoughts about pink. This is Crepe Myrtle. And ooh, I could see a version of Whitaker with this. That would be really super happy and fun, especially if you were putting him on a tree. I think that'd be amazing. So, you know, put aside for future use, possibly. I hate block stitching, and yes, I'm already thinking that I might need another Whitaker. But if you wanted something a little less whoa, Cinnabar was another one I was thinking about. And again, these all go really well with the color chosen from the pants. However, I thought there was a clear winner from the shades I selected, and that is Louisiana hot sauce. So this is what I'm going with. I may also over embellish the scarf with sequins once I get him FFO'd and his scarf on. So we'll see what a finished FFO'd Whitaker looks like next time. I think that's going to be really fun. So all details about the felted wool, about the threads and embellishments used, that will be in the description. And then one other thing about animal crackers. So they're so cute, but I don't really like block stitching, and neither does my mother. I keep on meaning to tell you guys this, I keep on forgetting, so I finally wrote it down. I said, yes, I did say that my mother doesn't like block stitching. So last year we were at the attic and she was pawing through the Stacy Nash animal cracker charts going, oh, they're so cute. She wants to do all of them. I looked at her, I said, you know, Mom, that's all stitching, you know that, right? And she put them down and was like, oh, no, I don't want to do that. But they're so cute. Oh, they're so cute. And she had this great idea, which is that they wouldn't actually have to be fully stitched. You could get out of some of the block stitching here. So you could then applique blocks of wool or felt to replace some of the block stitching. Like on Whitaker, you could stitch all of this so that it had the necessary detail, but in the areas where you just have plain colors, so say his pants and his mittens, just applique on some wool felt, some felted wool, some fabric, whatever. And then if you wanted to make sure that you really did get the accurate design, what you could do to make yourself a pattern there is just do an outline either in cross stitches or in back stitch, and then make your gut piece from that so that you know you are accurately following the design, and then that would get you out of a whole lot of block stitching. I think that'd be great. I might actually do that on some future animal crackers, because then you would get all of the cuteness but way less of the block stitching. So Mom, you're a genius, and if you do end up doing this, I hope that you will tag me on Instagram and share, because I think that's an awesome idea. I really am going to have to do that myself as well. So, I have finishing to do, but having done Whitaker, who is the epitome of cuteness, I can't wait to get onto his companion, Paisley, who I'm going to stitch with Soie Surfine on 48 count legacy linen. Now, it's really a testament to Stacy Nash as a designer, and to Paula out of Plum Street as well. She has the same quality that their designs make me actively want to do things that usually aren't my preference. I legitimately cannot wait to stitch Paisley, who is so stinking cute. So that is my current cross-stitching progress since the last episode, and then to celebrate 100 episodes of Ornamentations, we are going to take a look back at some of the things I have most enjoyed stitching. Okay, so the super fun stitching review for 100 episodes. Spoiler alert as to what one of those is, given that I've moved the camera setup here. The idea here is that we're going to just take a brief look back at some of the things that I most enjoyed stitching, and I'm really going to focus this on things that are all entirely or largely cross-stitch over to. So although the Brodemart sampler is most definitely a favorite counted work finish, it is largely dominated by other stitches. It was a very different kind of experience, and so we are going to focus on things that are dominated by cross stitch. Note on the Brodemart sampler, I am working on restocking kits. They will be in at some point. Don't have an ETA right now. Charts are still available from needlework stores. So within the lens of keeping it with cross stitch over two, and so then consequently we're not going to get into embroidery, wool applique, crafting, or more general types of finishes like beading. I do a lot of different fiber arts, but we're going to keep this to cross stitch over two, or things that are largely cross stitch over two. as a review, and this isn't meant to be entirely comprehensive. It was just like a quick 5-minute drill. If I had to think at the top of my head, what were the things where I enjoyed the actual process of the stitching the most? So some things that I just loved the finish, but the stitching wouldn't have been in my top 5 or whatever, aren't on this list. It was, what did I enjoy the experience of stitching the very most? And number 1 on the list, and quite frankly, it's not even close, it's number 1 by like a country mile, would be the one and only AKGIT 1833, a Virulenda sampler by Modern Folk Embroidery, seen next to me. I'm not taking this off the wall, it is permanently mounted there, so I am going to, I hope, remember to insert a few photos of this piece. It is so spectacular. I do legitimately love the finish on this. I think it's amazing. I love having it in my house. I love looking at it. I feel immense satisfaction when I look at it on my walls. Fabulous masterpiece. But more than that, I loved stitching this so much. There were a few really great things about AKGIT. One of which was that even though the motifs are quite intricate, it is single color. So I used Soie Surfine 2099 on Legacy Linen 5363 count Sicilian marzipan. So it was single color and tiny, but that added to the challenge and to me for the fun of the piece. So because it was single color, it was actually very efficient. I found that I was getting a lot done because you could just load your needle up with the length of thread and then stitch until you were done, and then load up to the next length of thread and then stitch until you were done. So intricate but single color stitching I found was very much to my taste, and I loved especially the Tree of Life motifs and the lozenges. Those were my very favorites, especially the big Tree of Life. It was kind of falling a little bit towards the end. I didn't love the rosettes just because they are very repetitive, but as a stitch, I have to say, and as a finish too, AKGIT comes in at number 1. This took me several months, I can't remember exactly how many, and I loved, just about every stinking minute on this piece. That was just wildly enjoyable. I loved it, and I love looking at it. It has the singular honor of being the only one of my own stitched pieces that is actually on display full-time in my house. For the most part, I am very much a process stitcher if you're new to this channel, and so I'm not particularly attached to my finishes generally. I tend to wrap them up and put them away and sometimes pull them out to look at, but it's the stitching that I love more than the product, so it's quite rare for me to want to have something out to look at all the time. But AKGIT, absolutely number 1. What are some other things that I really loved? This was actually pretty easy because when I was doing a mental review of some things that I have stitched, there were pieces that stood out. I'm sure the same would be true for you if you were doing the same exercise. It's actually kind of an interesting one. Whether or not you have a floss tube, you might want to just give a minute to think, what were the things I most enjoyed, and revisit that stitching experience. And so number 2 on the list are 3 projects that I think of as a trio, and so those are 3 plum streets that are separate designs. I don't think they're a series from Paulette, but to me, mentally, they are linked because to me, they're the same kind of experience and they represent different seasons. The first one is Oh Joyous Season, which I stitched as a pillow and without the words, because if you've been a long-time viewer, you know I do not like stitching letters. I also don't really like block stitching, and yet I loved Loved this piece. I think some of that is how much detail Paulette manages to work into what is nominally block stitching. So even though you've got this big roof, it has this lovely scallop detailing, and the house has the plaid, and then she's broken it up with lots and lots of windows, and then the snow has trees in it. Now, I didn't exactly follow the pattern. I removed the flag, I added more trees. I did what I do. I can't ever do what I'm told, right? But, oh, this was fun. The conversion for this is still available, even though this was a kit. So again, if you're new to my channel, most of my conversions are shared freely on my Flosstube. They're yours to play with or not as you like, for as long as you like. But pieces that are kits, the conversions are exclusive to the kits, and then when the kit's gone, they're permanently retired. Oh Joyous Season didn't start out as a kit. That was in response to popular demand, so I did not pull the conversion back once I had decided to kit it. There is one inactive color here, which is Gobelin's. I'm pretty sure it's 2636. It's that orangey red for the pomegranate. The pants color on Whitaker actually might be a really good sub here. I will put in that suggestion in the description. And oh, this was fun. I also just loved that basket of flower motif on the top. Everything about this was a plus, 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 plus. Love, love, love this. So that is Oh Joyous Season by Plum Street. And then kind of, you can see the visual theme here, I think. Detailed houses with lots of trees, block stitching, and things I don't normally like is one that is currently a kit. That's Flag Thief. So again, we have trees, we have grass instead of snow, we have elements around the house, and then lots of detail in the house itself. So you have all the colors in the roof, and I actually did compress that for the sake of the conversion. As charted, there are even more colors used in the roof than I used myself. And then you also have details within the house itself. You have the bunting, you have the flower baskets, you have the contrast brickwork. And then another thing I love about this is that you have some irregularity. It doesn't just feel like it was copy paste, The flower baskets aren't on every single window. They're just kind of moving around. It's one of the ways that Paulette gets so much movement out of the grid. That is, as a design thing, really tough to do. The trees aren't symmetrical, and yet somehow the whole piece feels balanced. And then in the grass, you have, again, kind of the fake bunting echoing the house, the stripes echoing the theme, and then everybody's favorite fox and rabbit at the bottom. So I think part of what I appreciate about these three that I've grouped together, although they're not, a series, is how much good design shaped the stitching. And then I brought myself to that with my own color choices and changing up the linen. And so there was some of me and there was a lot of Paulette, and it meant that I really enjoyed it. It was varied and engaging. Now, nothing is as varied and engaging as the one and only AKGIT, which I can't tell you how much I loved stitching that piece. But even though these are dominated by large amounts of block stitching, I still found the stitching to be really, really engaging. I loved the colors. Stitching with really beautiful threads on beautiful linen also always, ups my experience, I think. And so that's another thing I love. When I feel like I've really nailed a conversion, it does make me like the stitching more. And then the third, which is less clearly visually linked, this is more of a sampler, but to me, if this is winter and this is summer, this one is spring, although I do keep it out in all seasons. It's, to me, a lot about it says spring, but it's not necessarily a seasonal piece. And this is Plum Street Samplers, my early days, which I stitched on Legacy Linen 5363 conversion, linked in the description, as it will be for this joyous season. And sorry, I totally lost my train of thought. It's on Legacy Linen 5363 Sicilian Marzipan, but an older dye lot. So these are both Sicilian Marzipan, but this one has a much more pinkish cast to it. Of course, that has been amplified by the choice of colors. You can always choose to highlight what you see in a ground linen by the choice of colors that you use to stitch on it with. And this just has so many things that tick my boxes. It has a compressed color palette. It has lots of florals. I love stitching florals. It has beautiful, graceful, sweeping lines. It does not feel overly gridded to me, even though it is cross stitch on a grid. I love the flowering trees. I love the funky deer, stags, deer, whatever. Even the adorable little sheep. And, oh man, I don't love border stitching, but the border met perfectly. I didn't have to fudge it at all. Everything about this was so wildly satisfying. I think the color palette is delicate and beautiful. I love the flowers. I love everything about this piece. So of the three that I have grouped together, houses with flowers and great color palettes, I guess. Plum Street, that's my mental train of thought there. My Early Days is probably my favorite. So the conversion is in Soie Surfine. However, you could stitch this in 103. Just remove the 2 from the front of the number and you have the 103 color. If you like this interpretation of the pattern, but 5363 isn't something that you want to engage with. So Plum Street, My Early Days, and that trio is a whole little thing. Also super enjoyable, but you have seen more recently, Stacy Nash, Gingerbread House sewing book. So I've pulled just a couple Christmas finishes, but I think we will revisit this idea and do something that is specifically Katie's favorite Christmas finishes closer to the holidays, because ooh, opening up the big boxes of ornaments and trying to dig through them to find everything was just more than I could face today. There's probably some recency bias here, but I did really love this again because it was engaging and it was varied and there were some fantastic colors. That screamer pink I just love more than life. Plenty of sparkles, super fun time. Stacy Nash, Gingerbread Sewing House, both versions. And then, oh, another stonker one immediately comes to mind. Simple Harmony box. So this is my take on the modern folk embroidery pattern Forget Me Not, which I adapted to cover a box. If you are not up to a box, and we'll get up onto that in a minute, I would really just recommend the sampler pattern Forget Me Not. This was my first time stitching Quaker motifs, and for a lot of the same reasons that AKGIT appeals to me, single color, intricate but varied motifs that nicely fit together, Forget Me Not was always really appealing to me, and then I had the idea to adapt it to fit a box. There is a full set of tutorials on how to adapt this pattern to a box. Unfortunately, the box that I use, oh, this was a while ago now, 3.5 years I think, was purchased from Amazon. It is no longer available. However, a viewer very carefully measured her unfinished box, sent the measurements to me. They're on my website in the Simple Harmony section. And so if you know a woodworker, you can have them fabricate a box made to measure. I mean, there's nothing complicated about the box. This was not dovetailed, it was not joined, it was just pieces of wood glued together. You don't need an advanced woodworker friend to do this, just someone with a saw who can cut wood to size. Seriously. So it is still possible to do this. It's not quite as easy as it was when you could just order on Amazon, but everything that you would need to do this, including full tutorials on finishing, is still available to you if you can find a way to get the box made to size. There have been a lot of finishes of this piece from people who had no prior experience with doing boxes or glued finishing. They're beautiful, so I think I feel good in saying that the tutorials are up to the task. But let's look at the stitching, because that's really why we're here. And then of course I did finally do a label for this poor piece so that it's not anonymous. So I wanted this to commemorate family. So on the Forget Me Not original pattern, it had a random assignment of letters and numbers. On mine, they were selected to represent family members, and they're all from, the numbers are all from birth dates of people who are represented on the box. So it captures the feel of the original pattern in that they appear random, but they have a lot of meaning to me. This is stitched on Legacy Linen 37 count Russian tea cake with Gobelins. That beautiful, bright, screaming red, and I am totally blanking on it. It will be in the description, but I love a good Quaker motif, and even more than that, I love what Jacob did with Quaker motifs on this pattern, which is that he regularized them. That appeals to my brain, and so I found it very, very pleasurable to stitch. So, Simple Harmony box, another favorite finish. Apparently I really have a thing for a single color modern folk embroidery. We're gonna see some definite themes here. I'm continuing on the same theme. Also modern folk embroidery. This is an ornament that I did on Legacy Linen 45 count Nightingale, which is the same linen that I am doing my ornament version of the Gingerbread house on. And the pattern is Modern Folk Embroidery Alternative Trees. So that's actually charted as a multicolor, but not too many. I think it's like 3 color pattern, and they were alternate centers for the big stitch along that year, which I think was called Reaching Skyward. So I saw that and I just loved it. I think what was happening there was that I was really working my way up to then when AKGAT came along, I would be ready to stitch it. Because you can see, if you're familiar with the Violander patterns, where he's taking inspiration from, although they're not a direct copy. So I chose a single color that I thought highlighted the best of this linen, and the details will be linked in the description. This was a while ago. And then I finished it as a hanging ornament with my ribbon edge finishing tutorial. I'll link the tutorial as well in the description. And I gave this to my mom. I love the colors on this, but again, I loved the intricacy of the stitching, that it was varied yet efficient, because when you have that single color, you can just stitch until you're done and then load up your next thread. And I think the result is beautiful, but I also just really enjoyed the stitching, and I enjoy planning out where I'm going to go so that your stitching really logically flows through a motif. I wish I were one of those people for whom turning off your brain was, I don't want to say turning off your brain. That sounds like it's a derogatory statement, and it's not. But people for whom block stitching was comforting, because it would make my life easier and more pleasant. But for me, what is comforting is the thinking and the mechanics and the planning. I'm a weirdo. I'm fine with that. And then the last one we're going to look at today is an old Brenda Gervais, and this might have been one of the earliest pieces that, if we're looking at my Flosstube history, I can't actually remember whether this or Simple Harmony came first. Might have been Simple Harmony. This is Brenda Gervais Burr. It's cold. I love snowmen. I think that this is going to go beautifully with Whitaker. Actually, hold please. Let's take a look. Oh yes, great with Whitaker. I actually forgot to tell you that one of the things I did when I was trying to come to a decision with Whitaker was that I pulled out some of my other Christmas finishes and thought about how these pieces might work together. And yes, I also pulled the thread. So if you need a sub for the discontinued Gobelins, the 100 thread I used on Whitaker 295 would be pretty good. It's not quite as dark, but it does have the same very orange undertones that effectively separate it from the more blue toned reds that are used in the house. That's actually really what you need to be able to differentiate those two reds. So yeah, like cute snowmen, but one of the things that makes this such a thing that came to mind when I was thinking about what were my favorite cross stitch finishes is that this was one of my early explorations in silk conversions and also adding sparkle. So I used a mixture of accentuate and surfine to do these little fabulous bronzy elements to fill in some of the sparkles on the white elements, the snowflakes. So to me, I look at this and I remember kind of stretching my wings with cross stitch, with bringing more of myself into patterns, making them reflect my taste, both in color and in materials, and having so much fun with that. So that's what this piece means to me. So Burr, It's Cold Outside also has a public conversion, so that will be linked in the description as well. Hopefully you enjoyed seeing these, you found something that you wanted to stitch, or you just enjoyed seeing these. So that is the cross stitch for this episode. We are going to have lots of giveaways at the end, so please stay tuned for that. Skip ahead if you don't want to see the embroidery, but I have some pretty stonker embroidery, so I kind of think you want to stay tuned for that. It's a finish. It is a full finish. It has both drawstrings and there is nothing left to do on this fabulousness other than admire it. I'm really, really, really proud. I wish it could really show the sparkle. The camera doesn't pick that up at all, but it's fabulous. It's really textured. It absolutely dazzles. Those of you who are coming to summer school are going to see the effect in person. I am absolutely going to be bringing this with me and showing it off, just because I would really like everybody to be able to see what this actually looks like. Since that's not possible, I'm definitely bringing it to summer school to share. So what was missing the last time we saw this was the second drawstring and the tassel assembly that goes on the drawstring. And oh my gosh, you guys, sending that second drawstring through legitimately took years off my life. I could not enlarge the hole snuff with any of the tools that I had. So once the first drawstring was in, as we saw the last time, I had to take that same awl and with the braid already in, continue to jab that all through in both directions, from the front and from the back, and then painstakingly work that second braid through without damaging the first. It was, oh my goodness, it was nerve-wracking. I kind of wanted to die during the whole process, but so worth it now that I look at my full finish. And yeah, now I have a million more ideas for sweet bags. I'm obsessed with the form. I'm totally going to do more of these. It took everything in me not to just sit down, sketch out another one and start it with this done. They're so much fun. They're so tactile. There are so many different things that you could do with them. I feel like I haven't even scratched the surface of this form, so more sweet bags are definitely coming. They are sublime. But for the moment, I am going to try and focus on my casket, because it seems every time I sit down and make some progress on that, I see a squirrel. Okay, so just for the record, I am appropriately ashamed that I keep on putting this project away to go chase after squirrels because it is turning out so well, and somehow all I can think about is more sweet bags. I'm the worst. I have made a promise to myself, and I trust you, Flosstube, to hold me accountable to this, that I am absolutely going to finish this casket before I go make another sweet bag. Now, of course, that doesn't rule out things like braids and tassels, just the actual stitching on a sweet bag. Yeah, my morality is flexible, apparently. So anyways, since it's been more than a minute since we looked at this project, my previous progress photos on this dated to March. I should feel shame. I thought we would start just by a recap of where I was with this project and what it is for those of you who may be new or just don't remember where was I on this. This project is a short flat casket style from Thistle Threads. I already have the exterior papered and ready to go. I like to put panels on as soon as the stitching is done. In my experience with gluing and finishing, sitting around waiting to do it, psyching yourself out about how terrifying it is to put glue all over your work doesn't actually increase the likelihood that something will actually get finished. So I rip the band-aid off as soon as I am done. And then I also like to work inside out. So the inside of this casket was fully finished before I ever started the exterior embroidery. So it's all beautiful yellow and gold tones accented by pearls. And then I do have one side of this casket already finished and on the box, although it doesn't have the trim on it yet. So every panel will get fully framed with gilt woven trim, and that's one reason why there's gold, but I've tried to tone it down with greens and grays so that it's not overwhelming once you get all that trim on. So that's panel number one. And this inserting picture here is where I was when I picked this project back up again. So this is going quite quickly because I am using quite time efficient techniques on this casket, and the area being covered here is not large. The short flat casket, according to its name, has shorter sides, and so you have much less design area to cover. If you're interested in caskets but really scared about doing one, a short flat is a great place to start because it's just less of a task than the bigger one. You have much less design area to cover, and it really does make a difference in how quickly you can get things. And that, of course, helps by the fact that on this particular one, I have chosen time efficient techniques. That wasn't for the purpose of being time efficient, it was just the idea I had was best expressed in things that actually do stitch up pretty quickly. So, again, photo, this is where we were this is where I was when we last saw this piece. It was very easy for me to put this away and focus on my sweet bag because I knew that the pink flower needed revisions and I didn't really fancy doing what needed to be done. So if we're looking at this, the left and right flowers have way too much disparity between them. The left flower uses the lightest pink in the color range I have selected, and the right uses the turquoise, and the cartouche is just not bridging the gap between them. So the task that I set myself was to bring those two flowers closer together in balance and harmony, which I did by adding some leaves on the right side so that we have kind of a balance in how raised this piece is, how many elements are standing up off the ground so that they are balanced in texture. And then I made more substantial revisions to the left side. So I added an inner row of petals, one shade darker. The stitch here is Holly Point. So I don't really like filming in this location because of the strong side light. However, it does, I think, give you a better idea of just how much texture and dimension there is on this piece. So the inner petals here, like the leaves, are in Holly Point using Soie Oval. Oval is just the best thread for needle lace ever, period. And Holly Point has quite rapidly become one of my favorite needle lace stitches, provided it's worked in oval, which is thread it's really meant to be worked in. So the inner petals being darker gives this flower more texture, it gives it a little more depth, and then it just looks less out of place next to the darker pink lily. So I think in that sense it was quite successful. I also thickened the stem. It looked like a lollipop before it got a little more heft, and added the mound underneath it so the side flowers are completely finished. I also added the frieze as well. You know, there's not much to the friezes. It's mostly just couching. The heaviest stitching is that one long and short stitch sleeve. So if I flip this over to the back, you can see how little of that design is penetrating through to the back, because so much of what's being done here is couching or needle lace. Needle lace isn't for everyone the most time efficient technique, but I am pretty practiced at it, and yeah, pretty quick. And then I did also have to revise the center of the flower. I had hoped to be able to slip the new petals underneath the existing center. That really didn't work. I needed access to the center, so I ripped it up and then I tweaked it just a little bit. It's not quite the same as the center we saw for last time, but it is the same general idea. Oh, I love how this is turning out. That's so much better balanced. I'm really, really satisfied with this. And this does have a lot of depth to it, because so it looks relatively simple in design, and it is, yet I have managed to use 15 shades of green in here. See if you can spot them all. That number actually goes up if we count the different threads in which shades are used. That would soar past 20. So, ooh, fun. I am hoping that I will have a finish for you on this panel next time, because the only thing left to be done on this is to finish the bird in the center cartouche, and I think, knock on wood, that I know what I want to do there. So I am hoping by the next time I see you that I will have 2 panels on my casket, and I might have a third up and going. I think a finish on this might be doable by the end of the year. It is really going to depend on how many other squirrels I run off and chase. The other thing I have for you on the casket is that I never had previously showed you the video for the first side, the step-by-step process video of how this piece came together. I have that. It's inserted at the end of this video. Please stay tuned if you would like to see that. So I am taking step-by-step photos for every piece of this casket, and then, like I did on the Britomart casket, I will clip them all together once it's done. That'll be a standalone video on how a casket comes together. The thing is, these projects look really intimidating, but they come together the same way anything comes together, whether that is a KGIT, a casket, or an animal cracker. One stitch at a time. There are just more stitches in a casket. So if you can do an animal cracker, I firmly believe that you can do a casket if you want to. You don't have to want to. You can enjoy just seeing them on my channel. That's fine. But that brings me to giveaways. So I'm going to pause this, bring the giveaways over. The other thing about filming in this spot is that there's no handy table or couch on which to set things. So hold please. Okay, so we are going to finish the episode with several giveaways to thank you for watching, for commenting, for subscribing, for following the channel, and for your support for all of this time. I don't know where all the time has gone. How have there been 100 Flosstube episodes on this channel? That's just crazy to me, but I am very thankful to all of you. You make it possible. And so as thanks, I have pulled some fun things from Stash as giveaway. The first are charts. So I went through my chart stash and I picked some things that I still love, but I know realistically I won't get to. So I want them to go to a better home where you will stitch them. So the first set of giveaways are charts. I will draw individually on these, so you are free to enter for any and all giveaways, for 1, for 3, for whatever. And on everything, I will ship anywhere in the world except for the European Union. That's just become a little too difficult. And then on the mother of pearl things, US only, but otherwise anywhere in the world. So the first is a wonderful sampler by Shakespeare's Peddler called Maria Finney, 1832. This one has a lot of elements that I love, as we saw in my early days. The borders similar, although of course not identical. You've got a small house, but not a dominating one. Lots of floral elements, trees. This one's great. It's just, there are only so many hours in the day. So keyword Maria for this sampler. Stitch count is 221 by 234, so a good sized sampler with lots of design interests, but not an enormous undertaking. Not, you know, a FGAT sized, which is over 400 stitches in each direction. Second chart is a Hands Across the Sea. This was an exclusive for Shakespeare's Peddler, Margaret Doyle, 1850. This one is quite petite. I'm looking for the stitch count. It is, couldn't find that. 136 by 175. So, and very of the Berlin work styles. If you've been following Susan Stanley, or if you were at the recent Attic event, Bristol to Berlin, or if you've generally sparked an interest in Berlin work, great choice. Some fabulous, happy, fabulous colors. Keyword on this one is Margaret. And then we have another hat sampler. This is from a past sampler symposium, and Morgan's, keyword Morgan's, as in the name on the chart. And this is another small sampler. This is 157 by 183 stitches, and does actually have a pretty good thread legend on this one. Keyword Morgan's. And then, oh, this gave me a wrench. This one was hard to part with, but I sat there, I was like, Katie, I'm really gonna do that border? And when I looked at my heart and I was honest with myself, the answer was no. So I thought, why not pass it on to another viewer who will? And this is the truly fabulous sampler and Mac Jennett by Needlework Press. It's gorgeous. It's a stunner. Someone please stitch this in my stead. And the keyword is Anne. So there will be 4 winners for the four charts. Those are the first giveaways. And the next set of giveaways are linen. So these are all remnants. These are things from my personal stash, but they are good sized enough that you should be able to do things with them. There are 2 of each of these, so I've kind of roughly grouped these into packs. So the first is what I'm calling the neutral pack. They're all legacy linens, which is my favorite. And then going dark to light, we have Smoke Signal. This is what I used on my larger version of the Stacy Nash Gingerbread house. Really great neutral, colors really pop on it. So the size on these will be roughly a small or an ornament. Probably harder to get something truly large out of these. And then we have a small piece of Fuller's Teasel, which is just one of my favorite neutrals. It's about the size I stitched Whitaker on, by the way. So if you want to stitch Whitaker as I did, piece of Fuller's Teasel coming at you. And then the last linen in the neutral pack is a nice piece of Legacy Linen 40 count Picadille, which is what I used for the Britomart sampler. Not big enough to actually do the Britomart sampler on, but Picadille is a fascinating linen. It looks like it should be really easy to stitch on, and it is. It's not technically difficult, but how colors behave on it is really interesting. So if you want to get better with color, I do get asked this sometimes. One way to do that is to take something you already know and like, and either do it again or just do sections of it again to see how it changes when you shift just one variable, which is your linen, and study what changed and why. And then the second pack, and again, we'll have 2 winners for this, is the gray pack. So we have 38 count Wayfarer's Cloak. You can get probably 3 Prairie Schooler sandals out of these if you're comfortable with shorter margins. Again, these are all remnants, so the sizes are a little odd, but the linen's perfectly good, and whoever argues with free. And then the second gray color, the darkest, is Sea Serpent. This is a really interesting color. I would class it on as a gray, but it has a lot of blue and a lot of purple in it. When we hold it up against Wayfarer's Cloak, which is more dominated by brown undertones than the gray, you can really see the difference. It's also much darker, but I didn't personally find it difficult to stitch on. And then the last piece in the gray pack are, for each pack, 2 pieces of Cloister Cream. Cloister Cream is one of my staple linens. I love it. Everything looks great on it. So I hope you'll try it out for yourself. It's a lighter linen and it's heathered. So the warp and weft are 2 different colors, and that can bring something different to your stitching. So for the linen, the key words are either neutral for the neutral pack, white into brown, or gray for the pack of different shaded grays. And then the last 2 giveaways I have are courtesy of Jackie Duplessis, and these are the last needle minders from the stash that she sent me. So keyword for this will be pearl, and the person who is first to respond when I draw the winners will get the big fancy one. The first one is of the same type that I have been giving away. It's a lovely, I would say that's a sunflower or sunray design with little holes around the edge, which you can use to park different threads or needles. It's also just really pretty. I don't actually use it for that purpose, but I have one of these and I use it and I just enjoy looking at it. And then the second is one that I actually really strongly considered filching for myself, but it was like, you know what, no, Katie, you have plenty of needle minders. Give this to a viewer who certainly deserves it more. And this is an absolutely beautiful cutout floral pattern with lovely etching and engraving in that radiant mother of pearl. So the keyword on both of these is pearl, and then when I call the winners, I'm just going to call 2 winners. The first to respond is going to get this bad boy, although they are both really fabulous. As always, I love Jackie's Mother of Pearl creations. On the 2 Mother of Pearl entries, as I said, US only entries on these, please. I do not think I can ship these outside of the US without an export permit, which I don't have. If you're international, but you have a friend in the US that can receive packages for you, that would be totally fine. I just can't send it out of the US. What you do with it after that is between you and customs service. So those are the giveaways. I hope that they bring you lots of stitching enjoyment to the winners. I will draw them on the next episode. So that closes out the 100th episode, which I hope you enjoyed. It felt like it should be special. I certainly had a lot of fun revisiting some old finishes and just thinking about what did I enjoy about these and why. Why were those the ones that immediately came to mind? I didn't actually spend too much time thinking about it, because when push came to shove, I found that there were some that just immediately came to mind as those I enjoyed stitching the most. So something you might want to try out yourself. It can be a fun exercise. I know I enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed seeing it. I'm just rambling now. Oh dear. So for next time, we are going to have a Christmas in July spectacular with some amazing FFOs, some new starts. I am going to, I hope, have some really good progress on Paisley and possibly on my secondary, just the cool little scene on the bottom corner from Stacy Nash Gingerbread House, because apparently I'm like on a mission to see how much use I can get out of one chart. Yeah, I would say that that's a fair inclusion in the most enjoyed finishes. That's not just recency bias, because you don't stitch something 3 times if you're not really enjoying yourself. Some of that I think is just the sparkle and embellishment potential, but I did enjoy the piece itself. So for next time, Christmas in July is spectacular. I love Christmas in July. I love Christmas at any time of year, actually. It's just some of my favorite stitching. And then I hope another casket panel finish as well. Fingers crossed, or I don't know, maybe the sweep bag urge will become overwhelming and I'm just going to be showing you the start on a new sweep bag. I do actually have several scribbled designs and notes for thoughts about what I want to do with my next sweep bag, and the next one after that, and the next one after that. This might actually become the sweep bag Flosstube channel. Who knows? If you would like to see the step-by-step process video on my casket panel, that's inserted here at the end, so make sure to stay tuned for that. And then also for next time, we will have all of the giveaway winners from this episode as a thank you. And just to close, thank you for watching. Thank you for engaging. Thank you for tuning in and stitching along with me. I appreciate you all more than I can say. I will be back with you again in 2 weeks. And until then, happy stitching.